Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to another match thoughts live from the game against Aston Villa. A 4-0 loss and one of the hardest games of football I've had to watch in a while. We're going to do the same thing we did from the Fulham game. We're going to go through each of the players, give them a match rating, and just give our overall thoughts on the game. Just like to say hello to a few people in the chat, Louis and Erwin. Hello, everyone, and I'm going to get straight into this and get us ready because it was rough. It's comfortably the worst game under Sean Dyche is one thing I will say. And again, I think a lot of the blame can just fall on a few players mainly, and I'm going to talk about one of them mainly because I think it's working again. My mic just got out for a minute actually. Oh, and it's switched microphones, so I'm going to sound worse for a second and then suddenly come back sounding better. But okay, as long as everyone can still hear me. But yeah, we've got David, Wormy, and Erwin all here. And yeah, but I just think it was one of those games really where nothing went right. I think it's no real surprise with how it ended up, with how the team was performing, with everything that went on. Really, it's just like I said, that it was difficult to watch, and difficult might even be an understatement. There were points where it just looked and it was like, this isn't even worth watching anymore, because it was embarrassing, really. It was embarrassing to watch, especially with with the thoughts going from the Fulham game that it was just missed chances were the reason why we weren't able to get something. To then go from that to just there we go. That's better. I think we're back on the actual microphone now. That's better. To go from that to then, all of a sudden it's 4-0 drubbing from a team that lost 5-1 last week. And, I know some people are saying stuff about Dyche. I think it's hard to really. I think a lot of the blame does fall on Dyche. It's simple as that, just for picking Michael Keane. Like everyone's been saying it for as long as the guy's been at Everton now, is that he just isn't good enough. And with a player like Jared Bramford on the bench, who's just come off a really good season in Holland, where teams like Manchester United are interested in buying him, a good left-footed ball-playing centre-back, and tall as well with some aerial presence, and then we're just sat persisting with someone who's, to be honest, useless. I genuinely think a post box would have done better that game than he did. He just got skinned at every possible opportunity. But we'll get into things straight away and we'll start talking about the match ratings because, I think that is what we're here to talk about. So if we do that, and then here we go. I think starting off with Pickford really is... Pickford has quite a low rating, but I think it's difficult really with Pickford because... I don't know what everyone else in the chat thinks. I'm going to have to give him like a 4. He conceded 4 goals. He can't really get a good rating, but I don't think that was a penalty at all. Watching the replay a few times, it doesn't even look like Pickford touches him. It looks like Watkins sees the possible impact coming and dives 2 or 3 seconds before Pickford even gets to him, which in my opinion anyway, it was a clear dive. I don't know what everyone else here thinks, but it was one of that looked well. It was a clear dive, and I just don't understand how it was a penalty, particularly. I don't. But again, he conceded 4 goals. He didn't really do much. He made 3 saves, but he expected 1 more goal than he was expecting. Stuff like that. He wasn't very good, and I won't usually go and slam Pickford because he rarely has a bad game for us. But this was one of those bad games, And it's one of those, he gets a 4, but again, it's not like I suddenly don't trust Pickford anymore. It's one of those things where this happens occasionally sometimes. But then we go on to Patterson, and again, it was another game of Patterson where I'm just like, it's starting to get to the point where I'm thinking we really need a right back because Patterson is just, the fella seems to get skinned every week like it's nothing. The guy will just come onto the pitch and then it'll just feel like 3 players beat him immediately. It's one of those things where, is he really trustworthy to be starting at right back for us right now? With the position we're in, with how bad the defending was, having someone else who can't defend just because he offers some pace going forward, is it worth it? I wouldn't particularly say so. But then we're relying on James Garner to play right back, maybe moving Ashley Young over. I mean, to be honest, I'm at the point where maybe moving Patterson over and putting Mikalenko back in the team wouldn't be an awful shout, because Patterson has been awful beyond belief. And his first 2 games, the big issue is he's barely actually played any senior football, and all of a sudden now he's playing senior football after a few injuries and playing in what is probably going to be the worst defence in the Premier League, how it looks so far. But yeah, Patterson, he gets a 5. I don't know. I don't think he was awful. I don't think he was. I don't know. It's hard to really get a grasp on him. We look what he did here, where he played okay. He won all his tackles and he did okay, but I think Wormy puts it perfectly here, and it's more nonsense from the club. I love Coleman, but giving him a new contract and then not getting a right back, it sums the club up, really, doesn't it? It sums us up really there. Young was poor. We'll get onto that, but I think we'll start off. Is it harsh to give him a 1? Genuine question. Is it harsh to give Michael Keane a 1? Because I am tempted. Straight 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10. Is that harsh? Because I think personally he was that bad. Don't get me wrong, not every goal was all his fault, but the amount of times this fellow just seems to it's almost a talent how bad he is at defending. It's it looks civilian at times how bad he is at defending. It's just, how many times have we had to say something now at the point where it's Michael Keane makes a mistake, but he can't play after this. That has to, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if that had to be it from the club, but one is generous. He so bad he mixed. He did. He honestly made Tarkowski look so much worse. But I'm going to give him a 2. The only way he could have been worse. He could have got a red card or a blood. Actually, saying that, we might have performed better if he got a red card. But it was all 4 goals. You could probably argue he played some fault in, and that is saying something. That's a different level of crap when you can say he was probably involved in some way or another in all 4 goals against us. So it's I don't want to talk about it too long, because I hate just harping on bad performances and giving the players shit for it, but it was disastrous to the point where it would genuinely shock me if Dice plays him again against, I don't care who it is. I think it's Wolves or Sheffield United. I don't care how bad their attacks are. They will score if Michael Keane is playing. It's as simple as fact. And then Tarkowski, I'd give a 5. I don't think he was awful. I don't think he was very good either. I think having Michael Keane next to him is making me willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because that performance was so bad that it made Tarkowski look worse, like Wormy said. So it's one of those things where I just it's one of those where I can't. There's not much to say about him. He didn't do much. He had some moments, but it's one of those where, what really is there to say about his performance? We conceded 4 goals, and he was pretty anonymous throughout most of the game, to be honest with you. Then we move on to Ashley Young, again, a 5. I actually had really high hopes of Young going after the first game against Fulham. I thought him and Iwobi linked up really well together. I thought the performance was really good, but against his old team, he's just, I think he had one okay moment I can think of, and that was when he was able to get that foul off Matty Cash, and he looked like he got us into a decent position. But it's just one of those things where it was not a good performance. But again, I don't think we should be in a position where we're having to start a 38-year-old at fullback. I think, again, a lot of this is falling on, falling on back at the people who run the club again, or the people who make the transfers. Why is a 38-year-old who we signed for squad depth, more than likely, starting every game so far? It's only 2 games, and maybe there is plans to bring Mikalenko in, but I just don't get it. Just a 5 again. What did he do? He was, a lot of the players this game just felt anonymous. They just felt like they didn't do anything. And the most impactful players, the players who actually looked like they did something, came off the bench. So I don't know if anyone
from this game gets above a 5 who started, to be completely honest with you. I don't know if that's me, being a bit too pessimistic, but I just again, there's not much to talk about. He was practically anonymous, picked up a yellow card. There's not really much to talk about from Gay. Garner, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know. Like, if I check the bench as well quickly, and so yeah, according to this, Garner was our best player. Again, I don't know what. I don't know. Again, it was. I think, was he the best player? Maybe. Everyone was not that good. So I guess if thinking back on it, the best players were, I think, like Owen puts here, probably for me, Danjuma and Dobbin were the two best players. But I guess Garner again. I Garner was okay. If we have a look, with that shit show of a performance, it's hard to really blame him on everything. But he got a lot of touches of the ball. He was okay. Yeah, I'll give Garner a 6. Yeah, I guess I'll give Garner a 6. He wasn't as bad as a lot of the people around him. So, yeah, I'd say. But again, not much in the department. I think he shouldn't be playing on that right-hand side, really. And I think it's getting to the point, really, where you look at it and go, wow, we're in a position where we don't have a winger. Oh, I don't know. We know we have a winger in Danjuma off the bench, but I don't know if Danjuma's fit. I don't know how it is. We have Danjuma and Dobbin, both wingers. And it's to the point where James Garner's a good player, and I mean, I would like Garner to start, but on that right-hand side, I just think he's not a winger. He's a central midfielder, and I know it's kind of not. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. It's not his go-to role, and I get. Yeah, he played. Sorry, oh my god, he played right back at the. He played right back at the Euros for England under 21s, but at the same time, that just because he played there at youth level doesn't mean he can play there at the Premier League. You know what I mean? It's a much bigger step up, and right midfield and right back, it's different. I don't know. I think, like I said, it's hard to pick up a lot of positives from anyone really, besides the two guys who came off the bench. But we move on to Decore at 5. What did he do? Again, it's the same thing. What did Decore do? He has a lot of energy and he works hard. And I think I like the idea of having Decore there for the sense of it lightened the load on Calvert-Lewin pressing wise, with Decore being the most forward man when it came to pressing. And I get the idea and I'm not against it. But surely there's forwards who could do that job. And I know Decore can run around for 90 minutes and then probably do another 60 on a treadmill. But it's one of those where the quality of the performances isn't there. And Decore has shown he can have quality performances. Don't get me wrong. He proved it a few times last season towards the back end of the season. But it's one of those where him in this attacking midfield role, in my mind, it just doesn't work. And it's bit us in the... Oh, I don't know what I've done there. And it's bit us in the face twice in a row now. I didn't mean to do that. Wait a second. And it's bit us in the face twice in a row now. So it's we're in a situation here where we need another attacking player with some energy. But yeah, a 5 for Decore. Moving on to Onana. I don't think Onana was awful again. But again, a bit anonymous, especially compared to the game against Fulham, where I thought he really stood out and one of the better players. I think it's a 5 again. Again, I don't want to just sit and go 5, 5, 5, because I can imagine that's boring to the people who are actually watching this. But really, what is there much to say about this performance? It's one of those where it's really hard to look at this and pick out positives from it. Compared to the Fulham game, where I was able to sit and break down the good things and say, for example, if Maupay wasn't up front, we probably win that game. Here, it looked like there was no other result possible besides us losing. I think it was one of those, and he puts, but Fulham were woeful and still beat us. I don't think Neil Maupay helped that. I'm not going to blame the loss on just Neil Maupay. I think the defending for Fulham's goal was awful too, but it's 2 games in a row now where I think the issues have been glaring, but at opposite ends of the pitch. It shows how bad the team is. Where last against Fulham we had Neil Maupay up front, who really should have scored, and now we had Michael Keane, who just can't defend. You know, it's when Michael Keane's a centre back whose best attribute is he can score a worldie once every 10 games or once every 20 games. Who wants that from the centre back? Okay, you know, it's one of those. But again, we'll go back 5 on Onana. I'd probably the same for Iwobi, really. Like, again, what did he really do? But again, what did anyone on? I think here's my thing with Calvert-Lewin is I'm going to have to ask you a lot for this because I don't really know what to rate Calvert-Lewin because I'm stuck in a thing here where he got clattered early on into the game, which I do think was his fault. I don't think he should have dived in like he did to get that ball at all. And I know people appreciate a bit of effort, but like there was not a chance on planet Earth he was getting that ball. Not a chance. I think it was a poor decision from him to dive in like that. And I don't know. I think because I think clearly it impacted him to have him taken off on the 38th minute, and you saw the way the swelling started to grow. But he just, I think it's hard to give him a rating, to be honest with you, for the time that he played, and then I feel like he might have been impacted. But again, it's a thing with Calvert-Lewin where this one was a freak. It's not like it was his legs giving out on him again. This one was just a freak accident. And thankfully for Calvert-Lewin, he's not got a concussion. I don't think he deserved any of the abuse he got. I think it was ridiculous. But I think it's hard to really give Calvert-Lewin a match rating with the entire context of what happened and the fact that he didn't really play much. And, you know, I think it's, you know, I think Phil puts it perfectly. You know, I think DNF has to be the rating. I can't think of anything else, really, you know. I think that sums it up perfectly, really. I don't know what else to give him. But if we move on to the only positive parts of this entire game for us, it was Danjuma and Dobbin, who I think both had I think Danjuma especially came on, and, you know, you see here with his shot chart, immediately Danjuma came on and made an impact for us. You know, it showed that, you know, it was one of those where I'd be very surprised if he's not starting next game after this. He has to start next game after this. You know, I know he got an hour in, but he was really impressive in the hour that he got, and I think he wasn't helped by the players surrounding him. And again, I think I'd give him a I think I want maybe a 7, 6.5. I think it's one of those where maybe if he would have started, if he was fit enough to start, we might have been able to build something, and having Danjuma next to Calvert-Lewin would have offered a lot more instead of only having one of them on the pitch. But yeah, I think Danjuma deserves a 7 in my opinion. I think he came on. I think he really impressed. You know, you look at it and you can see why we wanted him so much in January and why we ended up coming back to get him in the end, because he's a really impressive player. And again, Dobbin was a player that I wasn't too sure about, especially because he was barely starting at Derby, really. He was coming off the bench a lot and used as a spark plug off the bench a lot. I thought the only logical move here was to have Dobbin go out on loan, and I still think that's going to happen. I think the same with Cannon. I think they're both still destined to go out on loan. But I think it's one of those where I'd give Dobbin I think this is probably right about a 6.5. He came on and he showed real energy. He fought he fought, and it's simple what a lot of the team didn't do. And I think, you know, you wish to see more of that. But like I said, it's hard to give anyone a good rating because we just got pummeled, like beyond belief pummeled. And you see it by Aston Villa's player ratings, how everyone on their team had above a 7 because they just ponied us at every possible opportunity, you know. And I think the club really needs to look at this. And there's 10 days left of the transfer window, and there's clear signs of what we need now. You know, I've seen rumours about Callum Hudson-Odoi for 8 million. Again, for 8 million, that's a punt we have to take, because it's just, what else do we have in the department where we've got McNeil and Harrison, who we also brought in, out injured, and we're relying on Dobbin, who, don't get me wrong, impressed, but shouldn't be put in this position in the first place, considering he should probably get a season of Championship football under his belt before he's considering playing Premier League. But, you know, maybe we've seen players make the jump before. It's not impossible, but I think it's a really dire sign. I think another centre-back has to come in, and I think Branthwaite should be starting, because, I mean, Can he be worse than Michael Keane? And at this point, I don't even want Michael Keane as a backup centre-back. It's scary to even have him as a backup centre-back, you know. For centre-backs I have faith in. I don't know if Holgate's injured or he's just not in the squad, but I have no faith in Keane or Holgate. Not much in Godfrey, but enough where he could be a backup. And then who else? I just don't get the thinking from Dyche on this part because in the end, he's being let down by the players. Don't get me wrong, but it's his decision to play these players when everyone else can see that these players don't perform, and especially someone like Michael Keane hasn't performed for years. For years at the club, hasn't performed. You know, his best performances is when he was saved by Carlo Ancelotti, because Carlo Ancelotti just went, yeah, we're going 4 centre-backs here. That's how we're not going to concede. I think that sums it up perfectly. But it's one of those where the situation we're putting a Wormy puts here, yeah, I know, and I think this sums it up perfectly. Zero faith in our recruitment or Dash. Could have signed Iheanacho 6 weeks ago for 50 million, but they signed Che Adams, basically Scottish Magpie. Yeah, again, I don't think Che Adams is that bad, but I don't think he's that much better. I think Iheanacho would have been my preference too, a striker who can score goals and can create a little bit too, but it's a position we've been in for years now, and I think it's Sean Dyche wants players who can play a certain kind of way with a lot of energy. But does it matter if the players have got a lot of energy if they, you know, can't score a tap in when they're right in front of the goal, or they can't defend when they're a defender? You know, it's a situation we look at and go, well, you know, we kind of deserve what's coming to us in a sense because, I mean, look at what we've done, you know. It's one of those things where what really do the club expect if we're not, you know, for example, we're not scoring goals and then we chuck Neil Maupay up front. What does the club expect? You know, we need to, you know, strengthen up the defence, and we keep Michael Keane in defence. It's every season it's the same thing, and it's one of those where it's at this point, am I surprised? Not really, not at all. At this point, it's just it is what it is at this point, and I don't see anything changing particularly. I think we're going to be stuck in the same circle over and over again, and I don't think the club's going to learn from it until it's too late. Is it too early to say we're going to get relegated? Yes, comfortably too early to say we're going to get relegated. You look at the table and you look at, you know, if we look at the Premier League table here, you know, Brentford are third, Brighton are top of the table. You know, you know, you look at teams like West Ham who are 6th. So I think West Ham are okay, but I think they're not going to finish around there. Chelsea in 15th. It's way too early to actually get some kind of judgment on the situation and some kind of understanding on the situation. But it's one of those where it's just you look at it and go, what are we going to do? And, you know, when we put here, let me get that up. Adams has 33 goals in 148 games and assists ain't good either. Highest tally at Southampton was 12. Iheanacho's far better. Starts in less games and 5 more sub appearances. Oh, I agree with me. I think Iheanacho's much better than him. I think there's a comfortable distance between Adams and Iheanacho. But at this point, I'm just not surprised. At this point, it just doesn't surprise me at all that that we're in this situation. Eugene puts here, I think Everton needs to drop Michael Keane for the next game against Wolves. I think we need to drop him for the rest of the season. If that's not a sign that the guy needs to go, like, how many clangers does Michael Keane get away with? And it's ridiculous. Like, I harped on all last season about how we should sign Conor Cody to prevent having to start Michael Keane. And now look at the situation we're in, conceding 4, with a lot of the 4 goals coming down to mistakes from him. It's as simple as that, really. You know, I don't want him to be the only scapegoat, like how Maupay was last week. But even then, you look at these past 2 games, there's been clear outliers of literally 2 players performing so badly that they might as well have held up a sign and said, sign someone in our position. But we don't, because we don't learn from mistakes like other clubs do. So does it surprise me? No, not at all, really. At this point, it wouldn't surprise me if this continues. It continues to the point until we're in a situation in January where we're like, well, Sean Dyche has gone again. Here we go for what? Like, God knows how many times this has happened at this point since Majiri's come in. And we're just in a situation where it's just like we're just repeating the cycle over and over and over again with no intent of breaking it, really. So maybe things will change. Wolves and Sheffield United are the next 2 games, and they're 2 games we should win. I don't care how crap we looked, right? Wolves look just as bad as us, if not worse. And then Sheffield United, look at the team. The recruitment's been awful. You know, I think like Hamer's a good player. Hamer's a player I thought Everton should have signed, but you know, you look at the rest of their recruitment, they're starting like a Sula up front, who's some, you know, I think 19, 20-year-old who again was on loan at Derby last season or the season before. And they haven't signed a striker in this player where they need one. So if we lose these next 2 games, I think there's going to be real questions asked real early in the season, to be honest, because there's no way we can't win those 2 games, you know. But it won't surprise me. It's Everton. Again, it really won't surprise me. And sorry, I think that it's hard to talk about much more, really, you know, when you look at it and you go, going into the next 2 games, I think it might already be at the must-win point, because if we lose both of them, it's way too hard to lose to arguably two of the worst teams in the league besides us, and go, well, it's got the right man in charge. It's hard because I think Sean Dyche is a decent manager. You know, I know, for example, Wormy, you're not a big fan of him, but I think he's a decent manager. I think he's digging himself a hole that he's not going to be able to get out of if he keeps starting players like Michael Keane, like Neil Maupay, and just keeps with the signing of players that fit a certain profile. But in the end, if they can't do their job, then it doesn't matter if they fit that profile. Che Adams will run a lot of work harder, lighten the load on Calvert-Lewin. He's not going to score goals, considering that's the one thing that let us down last season, is we couldn't score goals to save our lives. And now it looks like we can't score goals, and we've arguably got the worst defence in the league. It doesn't help the signs of where things may go for Dyche, for even the club, unless drastic changes are made. They've got 10 days to make, you know, real drastic changes. That if it's in style of play, I don't know. You know, we next up, you know, we've got Wolves, which is next Saturday. So I mean, on Saturday, so 5 days, and it's then at least then we're lucky enough to, after that, you know, we've got a cup game in between to hopefully to bounce back. And then, you know, Wormy puts here, I was saying months ago, Dyche was going to try to prove a point with Keane, and Keane would 100% sink him. Well, let's face facts. Keane's already put one huge bullet into, or not even a bullet, he shot a cannon into the side of Dyche's boat, you know, here. So it's one of those where if something doesn't change, it's clear where the destination is, and that the changes need to be made through signings, changes in the system too. I think playing Garner out on the right, playing Decore as an attacking midfielder, it's just easy mistakes to fix, in my opinion. There are, you know, I'm not a football manager. I haven't got coaching badges. I don't know how to do that job. But I think watching the team enough, you can see that there's clear points in the team where you could change things and there'd be an improvement. But yeah, I think that's all I can really talk about. It's hard to really get too much out of a loss that bad without just harping on the negatives and saying this is where it's going to go. We're guaranteed to this. You know, it's really hard. I think you know Eugene puts here. I think Everton will be busy in the transfer deadline day at the end of this month. I hope so, Eugene. I really hope you're right, because we need to be. If not, then the worries. It's going to be 3 seasons in a row, and 3 seasons in a row of having to deal with this, and there's only a select few people to blame, really. So I think, anyway, again, we move on to next week. Hopefully we can be here next week after the game talking about a much more positive game. 3 points, hopefully. I hope you didn't all... Oh, wait a minute. Wormy puts... that he doesn't like Dyche putting on Young. Go on with 3 minutes. What is that? Again, I think it's just to give him an appearance under his belt and let him have a run about. But I hope you did all enjoy this live stream. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow the Toffee Blues on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed, and follow me on Twitter at Callum 3. I'll see you all for the next live stream or video that I'm on. Goodbye, everyone.